the gratitude? I'm not quite clear.
Yeah, how do you? Go ahead.
How do you become so grateful, and because of that, you live a life of?
I think this is a great first question, Brett. Thank you so much, because I actually think he nailed it, which is, I actually think he's right. Like in what I see in you and from others, like gratitude, it's incredible what gratitude does.
Well, the two things that mess everybody up are anger and fear. When you let them dominate you, you're in trouble. And you can't be angry and grateful simultaneously. It's the antidote. It's the only antidote that really works. And you can't be fearful and grateful simultaneously. So for me, to answer his question, I don't hope I'm going to be grateful. I have a system like anything in life. If you're a great pilot, you know how to fly a jet, you still have a checklist. Because if you miss the checklist, the consequences are too big. So I'm not a big meditator. My meditations have been active, it's been physical, it's been in nature, it's been ripping things open, it's being on stage. But I started a few years ago doing what I call priming. And what priming is most people think their thoughts are their thoughts, when really your thoughts have been primed by the environment. That's why you want to create the environments like you create and I create, because it makes you be your best. But specifically, there was a study where they took a group of actors, they had them go out to 200 people, and the only thing different, they walked up to each person, and the only thing different was they held a cup of coffee. They walk up to you as a stranger and go, would you hold this for a second? They look down so you can't say yes or no, and you'd end up taking it. They get their phone, they adjust it, they take it back and say thank you. That's the whole thing. Same facial expression for every person. Only difference, half got an iced coffee, the other got hot coffee. Now, 30 minutes go by. They send out an assistant, a research assistant with a clipboard, and they come up to these same individuals and say, if you give us 2 minutes of your time, we'll give you $20. Will you just read these 3 paragraphs and tell us what you think of this character? There's a couple questions. They read the 3 paragraphs and they say, what do you think of the main character in this little story? 81% that were given iced coffee say the person is cold and uncaring. 80%, a 1% variance of those who are hot coffee said the person is warm and connected and caring, with nothing else but coffee 30 minutes earlier, ice cold. I could tell you 50 of these. So what I do is I get up every morning and I make a radical change in my state, and I have a simple deal with myself. I prime for 10 minutes every day. Because if you don't have 10 minutes, you don't have a life. There's no
100%.
excuse. So I come in, I do this radical breathing change, these 3 sets of 30 breaths where I bring the air in and explode it out my nose, because I'm sure you know from Eastern philosophy, the breath is like the string on a kite. The mind is the kite.
Yep.
You can change the mind through breath.
Yep.
So I do this radical breathing, takes a minute. Then I do 3 things for 3 minutes, really simple. I take 3 minutes and I focus on 3 specific individual things that I'm grateful for, but I don't think about them intellectually. I step into the moment,
Yep.
remember it, feel it, and so what it does is it activates it not as a thought, but as a biochemistry. Then I do 3 minutes of prayer and blessings, starting with my family and moving out to everybody, my clients, friends, people I meet.
Yep.
And then I do 3 minutes on what I call 3 to Thrive, where I focus on 3 important outcomes that I have, that I want to accomplish, but I don't think about want to accomplish it. I see it, I feel it, I experience it is done, I feel grateful.
That's your move.
I actually go 15 or 20 minutes after because it feels so good. But what's happened is now you're primed. You're not hoping you're in prime time. You are in prime time. And to me, that's how I do it. And once you prime yourself, you start noticing things to be grateful for all the time. And when I asked Sir John Templeton, the first billionaire investor, international investor in the whole world, started with nothing, built to that. When I asked him, I said, what's the secret to wealth? I'll never forget. He looked at me and smiled and he said, Tony, it's what you teach. And I said, well, I teach a lot of things. Which thing? And he goes, gratitude.
So
he goes, you and I, how many billionaires do you and I know that are miserable human beings and they're so unhappy? He said, they're poor.
I always like to tell people to develop the habit of practicing the 4 A's. The first A stands for appreciation. Take every opportunity each day to thank every person for everything that he or she does, small or large, in the process of carrying out their duties in your home or at your work. Every time you develop an attitude of gratitude and just say thank you to a person, 3 wonderful things happen. First, their self-esteem goes up. They feel better and more valuable. They even feel more motivated to do more of the things for which they received appreciation in the first place. One of the best people building, child building, marriage, relationship building tools of all is just to say thank you all the time. Now the second A stands for approval. Give praise and approval on every occasion for every accomplishment of whatever size. Give praise for every good effort. Give praise for every good suggestion or idea. Just say, that's good. Especially praise people when they do something that goes above and beyond the call of duty. Praise immediately. Praise specifically. Praise regularly. Whenever you praise people, they experience it actually physically and emotionally. Their self-esteem goes up and they feel happy inside. They like themselves and feel more valuable. And whatever you praise gets repeated. In fact, the definition of self-esteem is the degree to which a person feels himself or herself to be praiseworthy. The third A stands for admiration. Continually compliment people on their traits, such as punctuality and persistence. Compliment people on their accomplishments, both at work and in their private lives. Every time you admire something about another person, you raise that person's self-esteem and make them feel happier. The fourth and final A stands for attention. This simply means that you listen patiently, listen quietly, listen calmly, listen thoughtfully, and listen without interrupting. True listeners hear what's being said to them. By expressing your gratitude to others in this way, you'll unwittingly increase your own happiness. The habit of feeling and expressing gratitude to those around you and to life in general has a wonderful effect on your personality and overall life circumstances.
Now, gratitude journals are something I recommend you keep at least once a day or once a week, at the very least once a week, right? Once a week is great. If you can do once a week, ideally on a Sunday, fantastic. If you can do once a day, ideally before you go to bed, fantastic, right? Those are the two kind of recommendations I have. That's the best way to keep it. And in this gratitude journal, people are like, well, what does it mean? You know, what does it look like? You know, it can just look like this. Like, it just has to be a notebook. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be a specific style of book, right? It can just be any notebook with lined paper, but you want something that stays in one place. Now, people often ask me, can I keep a gratitude journal electronically? Absolutely fine, but I would really recommend ideally having it somewhere where you're writing down. This ink, pen to paper is so much more powerful when we're trying to write down things that impact us in a powerful way. So finding a notebook that works for you. If you want to do it electronically, if that's the only way, Evernote on your phone as an app or just in notes on your phone, absolutely fine too. But remember, once a week or once every day. Now, what do you do when you open up that book? You open up that book, do you have to write Dear Gratitude Journal? Do you have to write Dear Diary? No, you don't, right? This is how I recommend keeping it going, keeping it regular. So what I recommend is doing this 15 minutes before you go to sleep. This is also a great way of disconnecting from your phone. Right? How many of you are on your phones at least in that gap 15 minutes before you go to bed, right? If that is you, this is a great way of substituting that last 15 minutes, moving away from your phone screen and starting to keep a gratitude journal. I recommend doing it before sleep because it does two things. It lets you sleep better because you've been allowed to offload your thoughts, you've gone to sleep with positive thoughts, you've banked them away, and at the same time, you wake up with these positive affirmations. You wake up with the feeling that you went to sleep with. And you can also think about what you were grateful for that day. Kristen says, this is something I want to practice with my students. It will build a sense of community amongst them. Totally true, Kristen. Definitely recommend it with young people. Why does spirituality give rise to grateful behavior, says Nitin? One of the reasons is because we know that gratitude exists across all spiritual paths. It's one of those principles. When I had Doug Abrams in here about a month or 6 weeks ago, he talked about the book he wrote, the Book of Joy, with the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And he was saying that they talked about how happiness and joy is unlocked through feeling grateful. So gratitude is like a pillar in every single spiritual path. Now, this is how to actually write a gratitude journal. It's a way of making it simple. Write 5 things that you're grateful for that day or that week, right? At least 5. Now, the interesting thing about gratitude is that it should be specific and it should be genuine, right? There's no point of writing down just general stuff. Like, if you haven't genuinely felt grateful for the fact that you have oxygen, now we should all feel grateful that we have air to breathe, but if you don't genuinely connect with that, don't write it down, right? If you don't genuinely connect with the fact that you have clothes, to wear and a house. Don't write that down because you want to try and make it genuine. So 5 things that you're genuinely grateful for and be specific. So you may be, I'm grateful for my partner because he or she makes me breakfast. I'm grateful for my job because it's paying me enough for me to live my life. You know, I'm grateful for whatever it is, and make it specific and genuine. Don't just say, I'm grateful for my mom. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my dad. Don't leave it like that. Because the more specific you get, the more you're wiring and tuning your brain into noticing these subtle things, observing these subtle things. So write down top 5 things that you're grateful for. You can start with material things if that helps, and then move into more subtle, more invisible things after on. That's generally the way people do it, right? Does that make sense? So I want you right now, if you can, to make a list of the top 5 things that you're grateful for. Write them down in the comment section if you like. Remember, be as specific and as genuine as you can. Those are the 2. Promise me, or at least try, that for once a week, once a day, you'll keep that gratitude journal. 5 things that you're grateful for. Genuine, specific. That's the criteria. Now, the next 5 things. I want you to write down 5 things every day, or these may be more every week, that you want to learn to be grateful for. See, we all have things that happen in our life that feel like curses, that feel like things are going wrong, that feels like things are falling apart, that makes us feel like everything's just crumbling, right? So you can't feel grateful for everything in a specific and genuine way straight away. That's just total nonsense, right? If something bad just happens to you, if you just lost your job and I'm like, oh, just be grateful for it, you'll just be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how do I just be grateful for that? So I get that, right? If someone just broke up with you, you just ended a relationship and someone goes, oh, just be grateful for that. I get that. It's not as easy as that. So what I'm saying to you is write down every week 5 things that you want to learn to be grateful for. What you're doing is you're planting an intention, you're planting a seed that you want to grow when you say that. The problem with most of us, or the challenge with what we do, is that we never plant that seed. We just feel bitter about something. And if we don't plant that seed, it never happens. I'll give you an example. If you walk into a room and it's already dark, and you say, I don't want to turn off the lights, and you're stubborn, no, I'm just annoyed that it's dark, what's going to happen? You'll trip over. And that's what we do. In dark times, if we just get bitter, right? If we don't turn on the lights, if we don't become grateful, if we don't embrace these things, we will just stumble more and more and more. And that's why it's so important that in these times, we actually realize and recognize that what are the things we need to learn to become grateful for and plant that seed rather than plant the weed of bitterness or anything else, right? Really think about that. What are the 5 things you want to learn to be grateful for in a specific and genuine way? Right now they don't feel genuine. Right now you don't know specifics, but how can you start becoming grateful? Kimberly says, maybe I can do this with a couple of friends. Is it a good idea to share your journal? Great question, Kimberly. I recommend this is a practice you do personally. And if you are going to do it with someone else, do it with someone that you really trust. Do it with someone that you don't feel you're going to agitate or make them feel more, they may get jealous or envious or might start looking at things differently. You want to do this in a safe space. This is something that I recommend doing personally and connecting with only people that you really trust, that you really have a bond with if you want to share it with other people. But still, perform the exercise personally, then share it. Right? It's also a good idea to share certain parts of it and maybe not share all of it, depending on how much you trust the other individual.
The appreciation game. Set a specific time each day to consciously appreciate everything you encounter. An ideal time to do this is on your way to or from work. Appreciate the people you pass, the road you're walking on or driving on, the cars that let you merge into a different lane, the street signs that make it easy for you to know where you're going, the rain that's nourishing the plants and trees. I'm in California, that's a big one for us right now, and so on. So look for the good in all situations, even those you would normally view as negative. And as the saying goes, every cloud has a silver lining. For example, when my wife was in a car accident a few years ago, she could have chosen to berate herself or question her judgment. Instead, she focused on her gratitude for suffering only minor injuries and for the help she received from other drivers at the scene of the accident. Now, my 4th tip is to carry a physical token of gratitude in your pocket, such as a heart-shaped stone or a crystal or some other small item that will act as a reminder. So every time you reach in your pocket, it'll act as a physical reminder to bring you back to practice gratitude, when your mind has maybe drifted somewhere else. And as you reach into your pocket throughout the day and you feel that token, use it as a reminder to stop, breathe, and take a moment to fully experience the emotion of gratitude. And the more conscious effort you put into seeking it out, the easier it will be able to find it, and the more powerful your experience will be. Next, remember to appreciate the smallest of blessings. The best way to activate your gratitude is by acknowledging the gifts most people take for granted. If you have food in your refrigerator, if you have clothes in your closet and a roof over your head, believe it or not, you're better off than 75% of the world's population. If you eat 3 meals a day, you are far better off than the 1 billion people on the planet who only eat once a day. Do you have a phone? How about a car that allows you to travel to work or to explore the country? Is your family healthy? Do you have a computer and the internet access to stay in touch with the world? To get access to education and perform the work for which you are paid? Do you have clean water to drink? Not everybody does. So celebrate these simple blessings. These daily conveniences are gifts that most people in the world do not even enjoy, and we take for granted. And finally, appreciate yourself. Don't forget to appreciate your own positive qualities and accomplishments. In addition to celebrating your big successes, acknowledge your small daily successes as well. We all need acknowledgement, but the most important acknowledgement is that which we give ourselves. And a very powerful way to acknowledge and appreciate yourself is by doing the mirror exercise. For a few minutes every night, talk to yourself in the mirror and appreciate yourself for the day's accomplishments.